section B and A. In that class, we have basically have I have introduced the topic related to subjects of international law. In that particular class, I have discussed about the concept that as an individual, we are basically objects of international law. Of it's all right that we all are related to be a part of that all international law, whatever law is going on, it's basically for the benefit of the individuals, but we are not directly subject of international law. Because if you on an just on the basis of an imaginary rule, or we can say just like Kelson, if you have to uh, give idea about the topic that how this particular two international national law is there, if I have to give that particular definition through the Kelson theory, that international, I'm just giving an example just for the idea that international is above domestic law, just I am giving an idea. So in a way, we can say that if we have that type of hierarchy, if you imagine that type of hierarchy, in that way we can say that we can't relate individual with international law. We have to relate state, because if the international law is above domestic law, just for understanding this concept, so we can easily identify that the individuals are not subject of international law, but states are subject of international law. Not only subject, but states are subject of international law. Even the international organizations are also subject of international law. So now you will ask me that what is definition of a state? It is nowhere given in the international law, but they have not defined a state as with a definition. But what they have done, they have provided the attributes or the feature of the state, and they have provided these attributes and the feature in the Montevideo Convention of 1933, which talks about rights and duties of the state. That means if you look into this particular Article 1, you will find that they have very much, they have tried to convince us as an we can say as a learner of international law, that states have these four arms. We can say I am suggesting this with the help of arms, and in a way these four arms, what are these four arms are there? For example, for identifying a state, you have to look into the that first thing is that there should be an territory, and the territory is not only territory, a word is uh, basically a prefix is provided before that particular word, and that particular word is fixed territory. That means there should be a fixed territory for that. So that means your territory should be well defined. I am not saying that there should not be any dispute here and there. There are so much of dispute in domestic level. Why not there will be dispute on international level? So there are disputes, but that dispute should be limited to that. That at least we can define that territory. For example, if you take the present situation, we have dispute with Pakistan, we have related to our borders, we have dispute with China also related to our borders, we have a dispute with Bangladesh related to our border, which was resolved in 2015. So these all things, but if you ask, if you say me that, sir, why then India is a state on international platform? India is a state because its territory is fixed. There are some here and there some problem maybe there, but I am not saying that. But they don't, the international don't consider that thing as an question to that particular attribute. So for a state, you should have a fixed territory. The second attribute for this particular state is that that particular state should have a permanent population should be there. Now you're saying that what with the perfect definition of permanent population? The permanent population can be that there can be immigration and immigration. So both words are different. Immigration, when somebody comes inside, and immigration when somebody go outside. So that particular situation can also 1.3 billion population is there. So 1.3 billion, many people every year, many people go outside from India to become a citizen of XYZ country, and many people adopt the citizenship of India also from Germany and all other countries. They are very much interested in our religion and our culture, so come to Vrindavan, Mathura, and they sit also. So the permanent question is also that here and there, that means there can be people coming going in and going out, but the criteria is permanent population, that at the present some people should reside in this particular territory. That means a fixed territory. Now second criteria is permanent population, and the third criteria is that it should be that that particular there should be government also. Now they have also tried to convince now what type of government. The government can be autocratic, the government can be aristocracy, the government can be that rulers also, the prince, princess, and this type of uh, king and queens also, and it can be by way of military also, and there can be democracy also. So they have not tried to define the concept of government. They have only tried to convince that there should be a government. They are not. They are not bothered about the type of government. So it can be, for example, if you take Myanmar, few months back there was a democracy. Right now in Myanmar there is a military rule. So in that way, there was Myanmar is still a state, and 2 or 3 months back that was also state. So the definition never changed if you're governed. For example, if you take the present situation of Afghanistan, Afghanistan is also a state, but there is no government. I'm not saying that Taliban is not ruling that Afghanistan, but if you take legally on the structure of legal basis, you can't say that Taliban are basically a legal government. But now, what is Taliban? Because the president of Afghanistan is right now in Qatar, so that is basically a type of government in exile. That means government in exile is there, so that is also a type of a state. Government is not residing. The political situation is that type that they can't reside in Afghanistan. So what they have done, they have moved their government outside, or whatever the uh, head of that particular state is, moved to the Qatar for governing. So that is an also type of government in exile. So Afghanistan is still a state, even though the government is not present, not we can say physically present in the particular country, but it is part of particular because that is in government in exile. So they have also the Montevideo Convention Article 1 never talk about that type of government. That means it can be military, it can be democratic, it can be any way, because uh, they have not tried to look into this particular topic, because that convention is of 1933 and they have tried to, because there was no exact definition of a state. So what they have tried to point out some important features. On that basis you can easily identify that this is a state. So these are four important attributes or features of an any state. Now the fourth one is very much important, and that is sovereignty. That means the sovereignty. That means you and only you can take decision about that state. That means if you have a government in that state, any type of government, then that particular government can take decision as accordingly, whatever decision they want to take for their own citizens or for international relation. Nobody is going to pressurize them to take decision according to them. So this is about sovereignty. Sovereignty is quite clear. It says that the government should take their own decision, and that government should have able to uh, is not bothered or influenced uh, by any other country's influence. So, for example, if India have to take any decision or on particularly the situation of Afghanistan, it will not be influenced by USA or it will not be influenced by China. It should be India's own decision, the decision taken by cabinet or the decision taken by with the advisory of Supreme Court. Also, sometimes Prime Minister take or President take. So that is also a type of, we can say, a decision is there. So sovereignty basically provides that you will take your own decision, and that decision should be not influenced by or not we can say pressurized by any other XYZ country. So these are four attributes of an particular we can say state. That you have to identify a state, you have to look into this particular concept, that 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 state have a permanent population, a fixed territory, a government, and then power, the sovereign power should be there. That means the state can take its own decision. So I think this is quite much. I think this particular concept and features are quite clear to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Rudra, have you joined? Because you are trying to join with another email ID, I think.
No, sir. I'm there.
Okay.
I just joined
I
with
saw
my
your
laptop too.
Okay, okay, okay. I saw your name here as a guest, so I think because before accepting you have already left, so admitting you. Okay. So this is basically we have done about the subject of, and these are the features of, because the definition is not there. So we have to identify, just like our Article 12, the state and other authority. For other authority, you can have numerous case laws. For example, I think you have studied in the constitution also for other authorities. That what can be other authorities. So there is a case, very much famous case is related to. I am forgetting the name of that case relating to this Article 12. Uh, uh, it was like there was some Sethi versus Air India or something, or Air India Authority, some case was there. So it was about administration, the financial capacity, so taking administration decision. So in that way you can define other authority in this particular, in the view of constitution. And for international level, you have to look into these four features: fixed territory, permanent population, sovereignty, and a government. No a requirement of any democratic government can be any type. There is no problem with the government. So we can easily identify that. Now there is a type of, which we will also discuss while we will study recognition. There can be two types of government also, and two type of recognition is also, we can term in that way also, that de jure and de facto. De jure and de facto. So at what is de jure and what is de facto? For example, if a country have to recognize uh, a country, that that particular country uh, uh, is an country or not, all the attributes, all the features are there already. So in that way, that country can recognize that country in a two way. The first is de facto recognition. That means they are basically recognizing that country on the basis of only fact, that this country have these following features, so we are recognizing this country. And the possibility of de facto recognition is that they can easily take that recognition also. That means de facto recognition is temporary in nature, and it can taken by the country which has given that recognition. But if you have given de jure recognition to some XYZ country, in that way you can basically you can't take that particular recognition, because that recognition is legal in nature. And if one time you have given that recognition, so you have to basically support that recognition till the end. You can't take that recognition. So de facto and de jure recognition, we will also study this topic in the recognition. But for understanding this concept, which basically related to government, that a government can be of any time. The government can be of any type. That means it can be a de jure government. That means, what is the de jure government? Can be that any political party has basically has taken over the political system of some country, and they are ruling that country. For example, if you take the example of right now Bangladesh, uh, 15 years back there was two very strong party in Bangladesh, just like India, uh, the Congress and BJP concept. But what happened when this uh, the current Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has basically took over the charge of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh? What happened to the other party? The other party, that particular the president of the other party was jailed for some XYZ whatever corruption charges or were there. And right now, at present, what I you will able to understand through the news also, that only one party is leading in Bangladesh. So this is basically a concept related to that. That can be a, we can predict that there can be one government and one political party which is governing in any country. We are, international law is not bothered about what is the present situation of your country. We will recognize you as a state even though your whole political system has collapsed. You have no democratic system, because we have recognized Pakistan. Pakistan have many military rulers. Recent one was the Musharraf was there. So we are not bothered about what composition of political party of you have in your state. We only bothered about in government. That government should be of representative nature only. No problem. You are convinced by, you are basically convinced by, or basically operated by some XYZ country. We are not bothered about that. We are only bothered about that there should be a government as per the Article 1 of Montevideo Convention, which defined rights and duties of the state. So the government can be military, the government can be government in exile, which I have already cleared out my points related to that also. So this is basic criteria related to sub, the subjects of international law. So this particular and the sovereignty principle, which I've also cleared out, that the capacity to make agreement, to sign multilateral agreement, to be part of convention. This is basically the fourth attribute or fourth feature, that is sovereignty principle. That means you have the capacity to to be part of some international agreement, to be a part of, for example, if you take India, India has the capacity to be a part of WTO. India has the capacity. India was one of the so India was the one of the founding member of UN also, because at that time we were governed by the Britishers. So we are also represented by the Britishers, even though the name of India was there. Because at that time uh, we have basically achieved that much of recognition in the British system also, that they have identified that in future we will get freedom. So at that time, in the 45 to 47, they have already identified that after 1 or 2 years India will get freedom. So they have basically tried to focus. They have proposed us to be a founding member of many international organizations, whether it is UN, whether it is GATE. These are all basically international organization which was created between 1945 at that time only. So this is basically related to sovereignty principle. So now we move forward to that, we have basically have identified now there can be a different system related to the state also. It is not like that the state have these attributes, but that is the end of the state. Now the question comes into basically in the topic, that kinds of state. Now, kinds of state we have to identify. There can be many kinds of state, but we will right now focus on the one of the important, that is sovereign state. Now, what is sovereignty? Now, what is sovereignty? Who has given this particular principle? Sovereign word was coined by Jean Bodin. Jean Bodin has coined this particular word, that we say that sovereignty principle he wanted to coin, and Hobbes and Bodin has uh, tried to point out, that basically try to define the theory of sovereignty. The theory of sovereignty, which basically they want to put that sovereign must be self-perpetuating, undivided, and ultimately absolute. That means self-perpetuating means they can new successors will come into picture. It is not like that sovereign will be taken over by some XYZ country, and it should be undivided, and ultimately it should be absolute in nature. So they have tried to convince, or they have tried to feature out the sovereignty, that sovereignty should be will be created, a succession process would be there, a new head will be come into future every time break, and after that what they have tried to convince, that in this particular when this particular system has evolved, it should be undivided in nature also. That means if a state should be sovereign, it should be undivided. That means there should be not internal division, should not be there in this sovereignty principle, and it should be ultimately absolute in nature. That means this was the concept of the sovereignty concept, which was given by Hobbes and Bodin. So, but the question comes into that picture is that whether is it possible to be sovereign, and at the same time is it possible to be part of international legal system? We can't say that, because we have to lose some sovereignty to be a part of international legal system. I can't say that I can become a part of some uh, teaching fraternity without giving proper time to my studies. I can't be. In the same way, you can't say that you will become a lawyer without giving some much time to your study, or your interest to be a part of, to study legal subjects. You can't say that by studying novels of Chetan Bhagat you can't become a lawyer. I can't say. You can become a lawyer by studying the novels of John Grisham, but you can't say that by reading Chetan Bhagat you become a lawyer. I am just giving just an idea. So, in the same way, to becoming a part of an international legal system, I will say that I am sovereign, I can't become part of an international legal system, because the international legal system talks about the concept that we need to be partial sovereign to become, because we have to lose some sovereignty to be part of international legal system. So it is quite important. It is quite important to be, but it also talks about that I will only be sovereign to be a part of international legal system, but no state will interfere in my internal affairs. That I am sovereign, I will basically try to uh, reduce my sovereignty to a level of partial sovereignty, but I will not say that I will reduce that much that you will interfere in my internal affairs. So sovereignty principle is quite clear. What was given by Jean Bodin, that concept was, we can say, prior concept before the concept of international legal system. But right now, the present situation after the creation of United Nations is that we have achieved more, and right now the state should have to be give some much, or we can say, uh, a, a part of sovereignty to basically throw out some sovereignty to part of international legal system. But that can't deny the right of the state that any state will interfere in the internal affairs, because that is one of the important principle of UN Charter also. That UN Charter say that any state should not interfere in the internal affairs of any XYZ country. So one person, they are saying that we will jointly try to uh, achieve international peace and security. But how we will achieve that? For achieving that international peace and security, we need a type of assurance that that particular, we will basically have to create international peace and security, but no state will interfere in the internal affairs of our own state. So this is basically the concept related to sovereignty. So sovereign state is quite clear. The essential, we can say, in a way we can find out that sovereignty is very much dependent on the territorial limitation and independence of state power, that how state uses its power. So if you are not touching that, you're not looking into the territory of that particular state, and if you are not interfering in the internal affairs of that state, that 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 basically what you do, you are saying that you are recognizing the sovereignty of that state. And what the state will do, the state, what for the, we can say, the outcome of that particular respect for their territory and respect for their internal affairs, the rest, the state will basically promote the international peace and security in the international arena. So this is one of the concepts related to sovereignty. So sovereign state is quite clear, it will be there, but the sovereign state is, I can also say, the absolute sovereignty is not there right now, because every most of the states want to be a part of an international organization. So we can't say that every state is ultimately or absolute sovereign. Some this The sovereignty principle, at the 21st century, the sovereignty principle has evolved so much, and now they are not absolute in nature, but they are partial sovereignty concept has evolved, and every state should be a part of an international legal system, and that is beneficial for the that state also, and for the development of international legal system also. Because if you will not left your home, you can't be a lawyer, because you can't, for example, somebody is from Agra, somebody is from Bihar, Bhagalpur, Madhepura, any district of Bihar or Jharkhand. So you have to move forward. That's way even a state have to move forward, and they have to lose their sovereignty to be a part of international legal system. So international law basically ask you that you will become member of this particular international organization, and we will support you also. For example, if you study international trade law, while you will study in the, I think, if you take the corporate honors, in the 9th or 10th semester, you will study international trade law. So international trade law is all about the particular concept that you have to reduce your sovereignty, otherwise you can't be part of an international trade. And international trade, if you become part of an international trade, it automatically supports your economic development. For example, when we become an open economy during the when Mr. Manmohan Singh was finance minister, our economy has developed so much. So we are aiming to a $5 trillion economy or $10 trillion economy is due to the decision made by Manmohan Singh. We become an open economy at that time. So in that way, we have to relate this international also or the sovereignty principle also, that sovereignty right now is not absolute in nature. In one word I can define that sovereign states are there, and but that sovereignty is not absolute in nature. So this is basically the concept related to sovereign state. Now another thing come into picture, that it is not like that if you're sovereign in nature you can take any decision. The international law say that if you are sovereign in nature, take decisions for the benefit of your citizens. We have no complaint with that, but don't take any decisions which can hamper the benefits of other states. For example, because we are residing in a world where we all are interconnected. We are connected through land, either we are connected through oceans. So in a way, we can say that, for example, India has decided to have a nuclear plant at border of it. It will be dangerous to do that, but I basically am creating a type of concept, or I am imagining. I be trying to create a concept where I can say that India is trying to build, or India has decided to build a nuclear power plant in Jammu and Kashmir region. Now, what they are doing, the power plant is going very much okay, but now what happened, they have, because if there is a nuclear power plant, as you all know, there will be nuclear wastage also. So what they are doing, they are throwing that nuclear waste in the uh, river which is going through Pakistan. So now what will happen, the nuclear energy, it is used for good manner, for the good purpose, and that is for the benefit of the citizen of India. But what they are doing, they are throwing that nuclear waste in Pakistan, and that is hampering the life of the citizens of Pakistan. You can't do that as per the international environmental laws, also as per the international law, also on the basis of international human rights also, you can't do that thing. So sovereignty principle gives you right to do good for your citizen, but that good should not impact some other country citizens or people of that country in a bad manner. So sovereignty principle is also we can say is curtailed in nature. That is, sovereign state is not to free to do even in its internal affairs, which is detrimental to the freedom or independence of other states. That is, if you are taking any action and that action is detrimental and that action is creating problem in other states, you can't take action. That means it is good for your country, it is good for your citizen. It doesn't mean that it will good for all other states or all other citizens which are living or residing nearby your state territory. So that is also one of the important feature related to this particular sovereign state. The sovereign state is sovereign, and it is sovereign till in time where you are using that particular sovereignty for benefit of your own citizens, but you can't use that particular territory for the which basically will hamper the life of different, for example, XYZ country, because we are well connected right now. uh, we all are basically very much connected in our South Asian region, we can say, or we can say sometimes also called Indian subcontinent. The 7 or 8 states, we are very much connected through our, whether through most of the are connected through land routes. So that will be a very much difficult if you are taking any action which will basically create problem to other states. There can be minor incidences related to creating dam and XYZ, but that is a different thing. That issues are related to you. You can go to International Court of Justice for resolving that issue also. But this particular concept, the sovereignty principle, trying to promote in relation to international law, that they don't want to be a part of this particular concept. They don't want to relate that particular thing in a way that will hamper the other state. So this principle is quite clear that you are sovereign. I respect your sovereignty, but don't use your sovereignty or don't misuse your sovereignty to create problem in other nation. And relating to the sovereignty, another concept come into picture, that is principle of good neighborliness. That means if you are deciding, two countries are there, for example, India, Pakistan is there, China is there, or other countries are there. So a principle of good neighborliness is also there. Supreme and absolute power of the sovereign state are further qualified by the principle of good neighborliness. That means even the preamble of the Charter of the United Nations says that states shall live together in peace with one another as good neighbor. That means in the every, I think most of the classes have tried to convince that good fences make good neighbors. So that is a, this particular concept is related to that only, that if you have the limited relation, and you, if that particular relation, if you make good relation with your neighboring state, that will basically promote your trade as well as your trade and development also. That is also important. And the charter is itself says that, the UN charter, that the states shall live together in peace with one another as good neighbors. Article 74 of the Charter of the State basically says that state that members of the United Nations also agree that their policy in respect of non-self-governing territories must be based on the general principle of good neighborliness. That means if you are basically sharing territories, if you are basically adjoining territories of different countries are there, you should respect their territory limit, and on that basis, that is a principle of good neighborliness. That means you should behave like a good neighbor, just like you stay, for example, yeah, all most of you are studying in hostel, I think. So what makes that particular thing, that your roommate, how your basically study is basically benefited if you are a good relation with your roommate, because if you are fighting with your roommate, you can't study, because while you are studying, he will play music, while he will study, you will play music. So that will also be problematic. So in a way, if in the international system also, you have to maintain peace, and that is related to that sovereign also. Now, there is a concept which I have also, while going through the history of the, or the evolution of international law, we have discussed, that is the equality of state, which was given by Vettel at that time, the very much important scholar of international law, who has said that all states are equal in nature, even though some state is with big territory, some state with a small territory, big economy, small economy, all are equal in nature. Nobody, everyone is member of United Nations. They have never said that this is a big member, US is a big member, India is a small member, or Bangladesh is not like is a small member. So every member is equal. So sovereignty always support that concept. Sovereignty, sovereign equality includes in every feature, not in, it also includes other elements. That means it supports that states are judicially or juridically equal also in nature. That means every state should have a proper judicial system should be there. Each state enjoy the right to inherent full sovereignty. That means no state will interfere in the internal affairs of other states. Each state had duty to respect the personality of other state. That means if a new state is created, you should respect that state if that state is created in a lawful manner. So that is also a thing. The territorial integrity and political independence of the states are inviolable. That means you have to support, you will not interfere in the political, whatever political outcome of that state, you will not interfere in the politics of that state, because that is also an internal matter of that state. Each state has right to freely choose and develop its political, social, economic, and internal system. You will not interfere that this state has not political system. Well, it is not well developed. It is military ruled. It is this is the non-democratic government. So you can't comment this type of things on any state. The state, whatever state is doing, it is their internal matter. You will not interfere. So this is the important criteria in relation to the sovereignty principle. That means you will in any manner, even if you are sovereign, another state is also sovereign, you will not, you can maintain that sovereignty by not interfering in the internal affairs of that state. Because मैं अपने घर पे अच्छा हूँ, you are good in your house, I am good in my house, you are good in your house. So that is the particular concept of international law. They, you know, we can also criticize international on that way also, that in one way they are saying that we are basically a part of world family, and another thing they are promoting that we are you are sovereign in your own state, I am sovereign in your own state. That we can criticize on that basis also. So this is an basically concept of the sovereign state. Now another thing which come into question, the kind we can say the union of states. Sovereign states are single international person, that is, they have one central political authority. Such single states are called simple international person. But there can be situation where two or more single states may form a union by international treaty recognized by other powers, where they surrender their sovereignty in favor of the union. There can be many instances where you can find that there are two sovereign states, they are merging together, and the small sovereign state gives their right to the other state. For example, if you take the example of, for example, there can be different state on that basis. So one of that particular state is the state is basically a protectorate state. Protect now, what is protectorate state? The one state which surrender itself by an agreement embodied in a treaty for the administration of certain important affairs. For example, if you there is an basically a 1949 treaty between India and Bhutan, which basically gives India a power of protectorate state. That means Bhutan is a protectorate state of India. That what is protectorate state? That means the few decisions will be taken by in the of internal importance or which is related to defense will be taken by India. For example, India will take this protect Bhutan in case of any war. So this is a concept related to protectorate state that India will, but in this particular 1949 treaty, it is called, I think, friendship treaty. In this friendship treaty, Bhutan has clearly mentioned out that we will only support, that we will only basically they have tried to input that India will not interfere in the internal affairs of the Bhutan, but India will only support when there is an emergency and it is in relation to war. Then India will support, because Bhutan army is not well uh, armed, we can say. So they are basically very much we are connected from past also, and so on that basis, Bhutan has signed an agreement with India, the Friendship Agreement of 1949. In this particular agreement, they have given that India will not interfere in the internal affairs, but what will but when there will be need of some international defense or for in war, that time India will basically provide support to that particular country. So this is in a way we can say the concept of a new concept, that is, we can say also not fully sovereign state concept come into picture. The state should be sovereign in order to be an international person. If attributes of statehoods are possessed by states other than sovereign states, even the smallest degree, they may deemed to be a part of international law. That means on that basis also, now the question come into picture that whether Bhutan even giving these rights to the some sovereign right to the India, even Bhutan is also a state. So Bhutan is also a state on the basis of international law. So these concepts were basically evolved in a way that try to protect. They basically try to protect, because sometimes we have to support international law, have to support these small countries also. So how we can support this international countries? By way of giving those rights or duties which we give to any big country. So this, by signing this agreement, even though Bhutan has tried to point out or lose some sovereignty to India, but they have basically turned in their basically by this particular friendship treaty. What they have done, they have point out clauses in this particular treaty which gives that idea that 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 even we have considered India as our protected state. We are, or India has considered Bhutan as their protected state. We will basically support it during war, but we will not interfere in the internal affairs. Whatever decisions Bhutan want to take, they can take as their own, by way of their own decisions, or by way of their own government or cabinet meetings. So we will not interfere in this particular. So this is basically an idea related to the concept of the other kinds of states are also there. So now what is now protectorate state? The protectorate state is defined by Fenwick. We say that a state which by formal treaty placed itself under the protection of a stronger state, surrendering to the latter control over its foreign relation while retaining the large measure of control over its domestic government. That means what Fenwick has tried to cleared out the concept of the protectorate state is say that generally where we will go for support, always we will go for bigger countries. We will not ask if Bhutan is asking support to Nepal, it is basically it will be a different thing. So what Bhutan will do, what Nepal will do, Nepal will ask support from us, Bhutan will ask support from us. So this is basically the Fenwick right to say that they have given the control over foreign affairs, but they are not trying to give whatever they are doing in domestic government. They don't try to give that thing. So because this is basically they give not a, there is a proper treaty relating to that, and the treaty is well defined. And according to treaty, that I think that treaty is if the treaty is from 1949, that many years have passed, more than 70 years have passed of the treaty, and we are still part of the treaty, and we have not misused our position till now. So Bhutan have faith on us. They have given our some external, we can say, decision making power of their state, but limited in sense. So in a way we can say Bhutan is in protectorate state of India. The treaty of friendship which I have said, it was concluded on August 8, 1949, and under Article 3 of the treaty, the government of India undertook to exercise no interference in the internal administration of Bhutan. That means whatever internal, as per the Article 3 of that treaty, that whatever internal administration, India will not interfere in that. So this is quite an we can the concept of protectorate state. That is Bhutan is one of the examples. Protected states are not sovereign states. However, they are prima facie independent and possessor of all rights which they have not surrendered. Therefore, they are international persons and are subject of international law. That means protectorate state Bhutan is recognized as a state as per the attributes or the features which is provided in the Montevideo Convention. So this is basically an example related to the protectorate state. So after that, there are other kinds of state also. We will study that also. I'm going deeply to this particular topic. The reason is that it is quite interesting also, and you can easily identify after studying this particular topic. You can easily identify that we are most of the time international law is talking about the states only, but you will find that inside a state there can be different kinds also. So it will be interesting in the future classes also. So we will discuss that other topics related to or other types of other kinds of states in the next class. For tomorrow our class we will have that. Okay. You have any question, Jyotirmay, Rudra, Ananya,
No, sir.
Yes. So it is quite clear the concept.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, yes.
सर स्टेट्स के अगर नोट्स होंगे तो वो फॉरवर्ड कर दीजिएगा ग्रुप में.
मैं करूंगा. वो मैं ऐड करते जा रहा हूँ पीपीटी में. I will share in 1 or 2 days. I will share.
Okay, sir.
Okay. I will share the audio and this two PPT also. Okay. So बाकी और किसी को कुछ पूछना है? हाँ जय बताइए.
सर आपने प्रोटेक्टेड स्टेट जो बताया है सर आपने, सर इसमें क्या सर जैसे सरेंडर कर दिया इंडिया को, तो सर मतलब क्या ये अलग से जो रिलेशन होते हैं एक्सटर्नल रिलेशन, क्या वो बना सकता है कि इंडिया भूटान के बिहाफ में बनाएगा सर?
नहीं, ये देखिए भूटान अपना जो पावर दिया है इट इज ओनली रिलेटेड टू प्रोटेक्शन. दैट मीन्स रिलेटेड टू डिफेंस ओनली. For other matters related to जैसे external affairs है, that will be taken by the Bhutan ministers only. It is about defense. For example, if in case there is a war between China and Bhutan, then they will ask for that India for help at that time.
Okay, sir.
For these states, India has done many things. For example, in the previous section. भाई किसका माइक ऑन हो जाता है बार बार पता नहीं. So India has basically taken many decisions regarding that. For example, I have given, I think in some previous classes, I have given that for Nepal we have more routes we have provided, because Nepal is a landlocked country. So as per the international law, we have to give only 4 routes, but which basically the international law suggests. But we have provided, I think, 11 routes. So this is basically this type of thing we always do for this state, and it is on the basis not only that we are doing, it is beneficial for us also, because these states are connected through China. So they can basically, if you not provide the support to these states, they will move, they will basically attracted to China, because Nepal is doing that thing. Bhutan is right now not doing that thing, but Nepal is already started. Now they are taking money from China also, and they are taking money from India also. They are now quite clever right now. So they are very much clever, and they are doing that because they are situated. The placement of this particular geographical condition is that of Nepal. That if the Nepal is influenced by China, it will be dangerous for us also, because in that way they can have more access to our territorial area. So that's why we basically, international relation is more about, we can say, the political in nature, and international law is also political in nature. So a book is also written on this particular international law and international politics. It is written by Sir Lee Scott, an Australian scholar. He has quite cleared that what is international law is basically is based on, we can say, on the base of international relation. If there is a collapse of international relation, the international law will always collapse. This is the basic criteria.
सर हेलो सर.
हाँ, बोलिए.
सर जैसे कि अब ट्रीटी साइन मतलब कि हम लोगों को वार में डिफेंड कर सकते हैं, तो सर जैसे कोई भी एक्सटर्नल मतलब कोई भी वेलफेयर मतलब स्कीम हो, जैसे कि अब जैसे कोई मतलब साइन कर रहा है एक्सटर्नल ट्रीटी जो मतलब बात भूटान को प्रॉब्लम कर सकती है, तो सर इंडिया क्या उस पर बोल सकती है कि आप ऐसे ट्रीटी ना साइन करें क्योंकि बाद में हम ही आपको बचाने आएंगे?
देखिए, that they have basically cleared out the treaty. देखिए, वो तो decision internal matters they have not given to India. India can suggest that, but it all depend on Bhutan, whether they are accepting our whatever advice we are giving, whether they are accepting or not. So it depends. India can also say that same thing on the basis of external relation. They can say that if you are signing this treaty, if the impact of this treaty can be not good for you, and at the time we will not be able to help you, because for example, what they are doing, they are giving some part of their territory to China to create dam. India has already created the dam in Bhutan, but they are giving their part. So on that position, India can say that why you are giving this part to China, it can create problem, because China and India have not good relation. So why not give that part? We will create a dam there. So India can do that, but as a state, because that they have they have independent decision. So on that way, they have to decide. This is totally dependent on Bhutan, whatever they think, and accordingly they can have to decide all the things. So India can suggest. It is not like that India can't suggest, but they have, the decision will be in the hand of Bhutan only.